Closing Gov. Please, Nick.
Closing Gov. Christians.
Okay. And then closing out.
Martin.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Then, with no further ado, we will go ahead and open up this debate for the 5 minutes. Oh, are you okay, Elvis? You need a little bit of time. Can you sit one over, please, Elvis? Okay. No further ado, we'll go ahead and have the 5 minutes over the debate for the motion this House believes the United States should replace Saudi Arabia with Iran as its major strategic partner in the Middle East. Hear, hear.
Okay. May I start? Thank you. Okay. The topic of today is that the United States of America should replace Saudi Arabia with Iran as a major partner in the Middle East. So we, like the open government, we completely agree with this idea. So I think that we will start about explaining the main points of this topic. First of all, I think the main benefit or the main profit of this issue is related with the oil. So I think that the main benefit of this is oil, and this particular issue would help also the United States, but also Iran. So why is it? So we will try to explain why is this important, the replacement of exactly the Saudi Arabia with the Iran, and why exactly the Iran. So we will start about oil, and then we will get to other points like ISIS and nuclear weapons that are maybe not directly connected, related with this topic. First of all, we'll start with oil. We know that the price of oil every day is getting lower. And with the price of getting lower, we will know that maybe the price of that and maybe the value of oil is getting lower. So why, if say Saudi Arabia would be replaced with Iran, would affect good to the United States, but also to Iran? First of all, we know that gas, this is also related with Russia. We know that oil is every day is getting lower, and the natural gas is also the main valuable resource in Russia. So if the Iran would be the major partner of Saudi Arabia, that would help. That will help to get more value to oil, and the gas of natural in Russia would get lower. And we know that Russia and the United States are presumably exact enemies with each other, and that would help also in United States issues, but also on Iran. So after that, we will talk about oil. In Iran, we know that now there are some sanctions, and these sanctions are two cases that would affect to Iran. First of all, with putting these sanctions to Iran, there are two cases that are also that is happening with the oil. So in the first case, oil is exploited, and these sanctions, we have to know that these sanctions are like limited selling oil or something like that. So if putting sanctions in Iran would have two options that are part of now in Iran, that people now with all these sanctions, or they are obligated to exploit oil and sell it illegally, or on the other hand to sell it, but to sell it with a higher price. So these are two main cases that all these sanctions that are part now of Iran would also change about that. Another thing about that is that why Iran would also affect good to United States, and all this replacement would help also Iran and also United States. First of all, and then with all this, with all the oil would have also higher value than the oil has now. So, and on the other hand, why this would help all these other countries? With if Iran would be the place or the major partner of U.S., the oil would have value, and this oil would help Iran. And if this oil would help Iran, this would also would help Iran of getting more power and more to strong the country, and also to help other countries like there are in boundaries, for example Iraq or other countries. With helping Iraq, it will help also people fighting for so many structures like religious structures like ISIS or other religious structures, in order to destroy them, because the country is powerful enough in order to help other important people, in order to help them to fight ISIS, or in order to help Shia, that you know that is sect of Islam, in order to help them to fight ISIS or other illegal structures like in Middle East. On the other hand, we are also talking about the value. We are also talking about the value of oil that is related with nuclear weapons. We know that Iran is one of the places with the most reserves of oil in the whole world. And this also, we know that Iran is also a place with that is also that has part with nuclear weapons, and this also would also decrease the number of conflicts. And if there would be a pure partnership between U.S. and Iran, this would help the two places together, fighting for all these conflicts, maybe destroying all these illegal structures, and also to power the country. And presumably that would help all both of countries, the Iran or also the U.S. Maybe the changing the situation that is now part of the Iran, and also changing the places that are in boundaries with the Iran. So this is particularly the main point, that the main benefit for two states would be oil, and also all these that I mentioned that are also connected with religious structures, and to fighting ISIS, and also to have also power and nuclear weapons that Iran is also known for them. So these are main point about the opening government.
Okay, and the speaker for those remarks, and I'll now invite the leader of the opposition. Open the opposition side. Here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of this House. Our position on the motion set before us is that we better trust a partner that we have come to know and understand, even if we have some differences with them, instead than backing a horse that is unreliable and that really doesn't share so much power in the region. So, in my speech, in my partner's speech, we will explain to you why the United States should keep Saudi Arabia as their strategic partner in the Middle East territories. And I will explain to you why A, Iran will not want an alliance with us anyway, B, why there are religious reasons for us keeping Saudi Arabia, why there are economic reasons, and why we appreciate consistent policies. And Haram, my partner, will analyze a bit the part about rights and how Saudi Arabia benefits from this alliance, and why we don't need to revise it any further. But first, let me say a few things about the case brought before us by the side of the government. So they talked about extensively about oil and how sanctions, and then the sanctions, and why exactly there are economic reasons that Iran has suffered throughout these years. And we like to say, and remind everyone, and this is going to be reminded throughout our extension here, is that sanctions are in place there for a reason. Sanctions are in place in Iran because they tried to develop an illegal nuclear program that was aiming in the creation of a nuclear weapon. And we don't think that this is a productive behavior for a potential partner of the United States. There's also a discussion about ISIS, and I'll get to that in my religious argumentation. But first, let me explain to you why Iran will not want an alliance like that. Well, first of all, the Iran-US relations in the past have been, to say, tense, because there has been during the past the Iran hostage crisis. There have been the whole program of sanctions that crippled the Iranian economy, for which the United States have been deemed to be the primary responsible, the primary motivational force behind these sanctions. And there has been a huge discussion on whether Iran should have a nuclear program and a nuclear weapon. So what we haven't heard by the government, the side of the government, is whether the United States would accept this nuclear weapon as part of some deal, some comprehensive deal, in order to establish a relationship with Iran as a means of strategic partnership. We believe that we shouldn't accept another nuclear power in the world, and especially not Iran, because we're not really sure if they're a rational actor. We're not really sure if the Ayatollah or the religious government of Iran are able to control the use of a nuclear weapon if we allow them to have it. Remember that even if we accept that Iran is a democracy, anti-American sentiment has been tense in this region, in this nation. No, ma'am. Because Ahmadinejad was in the end elected by the people, and what he really was based on was this anti-American rhetoric, which kind of he benefited from that. So we don't really think that the opportunity is there for the development of an American-Iranian relationship. Instead, what we will have is an alliance that will be short-lived. We'll have an alliance that will probably fail after a couple of years. And this is decisively something we don't have from Saudi Arabia, with which we have a long-lasting international partnership we're really happy with. Now, let me explain to you why there are religious reasons why we should prefer Saudi Arabia in comparison to Iran. And the first and foremost reason is Mecca. Saudi Arabia is the home of the sacred religious city of the Muslims. They're the stewards of the center of Islamic faith, the city that all Muslims bow to every time they make a prayer. So we feel no. So we feel that this is important because it establishes a partner that has a prominent position within the Islamic world. And in a world where the United States is currently active in two war fronts, with countries that are of the Muslim faith, having such a partner that has a really established position within the faith is something that we need to keep. Is something that we need to have in order to convince all other Muslim nations that this is not a holy war, this is not a jihad. That the United States is not there to enforce Christianity or fight against Muslims. This is purely a war that has happened on different reasons. And having Saudi Arabia as our partner in this is something that underlines our capacity to say so. However, on the other side, Iran is not even Sunni, they're Shia. And this means that they're part of the Muslim minority in these countries. So by switching our partnership to a Shia nation, to something that most Sunnis find, heretical in a sense, will kind of create more enemies with countries such as Morocco, for example, that are currently our friends and allies, especially an alliance that is based mostly on the fact that we have good relations with Saudi Arabia. Closing.
Are you aware that, well, historically, Saudi Arabia has been very important, if not essential, to the rise and development of Islam? Nowadays, they're also the source of Wahhabism, which is a very dangerous and extremist branch of Islam.
Listen, we believe that, and my partner will further elaborate on that. We believe that every country has its, fundamentalist and very conservative elements. We believe Wahhabism is one of that. But what we ultimately believe is that cooperation and exchange with the United States have led Saudi Arabia to a more liberal place than we would have been if this partnership wasn't there. But you'll hear more from that from Khaled. I'm here to say that one of the reasons, and let me finish the religious argument here by saying that one of the reasons it is more important to factor a Sunni partner is because of ISIS, because Saudi Arabia ISIS is Sunni as well, and having Saudi Arabia a Sunni partner would kind of create a more a more viable alternative to that. Now, the economic reasons is that Saudi Arabia is the biggest producer in OPEC. Just 40% of global oil is produced in Saudi Arabia, which gives the United States more of a leverage if something goes wrong, if something in the oil prices goes wrong. We can more easily pressure the largest petrol producing nation in the Gulf states in order to kind of not lower the prices in case this needs. So it's really important to have such a big oil producing country on our side, whilst Iran, on the other hand, hasn't really the potential that Saudi Arabia has right now. So this is another strong economic reason why you should prefer Saudi Arabia to Iran. So what we've told you today is that A, Iran will not want such an alliance. B, there are important religious reasons why this alliance should happen, because A, Saudi Arabia is where Mecca is, and we need a Sunni ally in the region in order to battle ISIS, one of all other things. And there are economic reasons, because Saudi Arabia is the biggest oil productive country in the region, and we need them in order to leverage our trade. So for all these reasons, ladies and gentlemen, we beg to oppose the motion. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Speaker, for those remarks, and I will now invite Deputy Prime Minister here.
Can I start? Okay, so what we as an opening and as a government are trying to say is the reason that why should the United States put Iran as a priority partner rather than Arabia, and we are not at any point saying that United States and Arabia should destroy their relations. Okay, first of all, I'm going just to review the points of the opening opposition. Okay, so first of all, that was Iran wouldn't want such an alliance. Iran wouldn't want an alliance with U.S. and that was all because the United States have had some wars in Iran and some conflicts and so. But it doesn't. I don't understand how does this somehow not let us as a state, as the United States, to try to have future deals with Iran. For example, Germany and France during the World War II had a strong war between each other, and then after the World War, nowadays they are very strong partners. So that is why that is why it's not necessary that Iran wouldn't want an alliance with states such as the U.S. Secondly, they mentioned the religious benefits and deficits if the U.S. made Iran as the main partner in the Middle East. Okay, so they mentioned that Saudi Arabia are mainly Sunnis, and they also mentioned that the ISIS warriors, so they call themselves, are too Sunni. So I don't think that this at any point would be somehow good for the image of America, because they have a partner who have the same religion as a terrorist organization has. So we also. They also said that Saudi Arabia has bigger oil potentials than Iran has. Okay, we actually know that, but because Saudi Arabia has had the partnership with the United States for a couple of times now, they are actually being more independent time after time. So they actually are lowering the belief that the United States of America will help them distribute the world with the oil. And the completely opposite side happens with Iran, because Iran is also has massive reserves of oil, but the problem there are the sanctions that are being appointed by different countries all over the world. So these are happening because Iran population, citizens of Iran or people are trying to sell oil in an illegal way. So a partnership with America and the most powerful corporations of America would help Iran because this amount of oil will not be exported to other places illegally. So these sanctions force Iran to exploit less oil, to sell it for higher price, and directly do a loss into that state economy. So a partnership with America would Iran would accept to somehow trust in America, trust in corporations of America because of their professionality, and not have problems with such states that are putting sanctions into Iran. This way, the oil would be transported all over the world properly, without breaking any law, and the oil price would get lower because of a higher amount of oil, and directly it would affect Russia gas transporting, which of course is the main reason why Russia is somehow adequate, how to say, against the United States. So Russia has its economy based 50% on in exports, and mainly the biggest part of exports of Russia is on gas. So they take amounts of gas and export it to the other countries and strengthen themselves while weakening the United States. So a partnership for United States with Iran would be great because the weakening of Russia, which is against America in all the sectors, like in economy, politics, wars, and so on. Also, we mentioned the war against ISIS, that the United States of America and Iran could do it by cooperating. So we both parts told that Iran is mostly populated by Shia Muslims, which in Iraq and in Syria, which are borders of Iran, form the group of rebels which are fighting against the leader of Syria and also the ISIS. So they are the group of rebels which are trying to fight these two somehow terrorist organizations. So while Iran is in border with Iraq and has somehow good relations with it, by strengthening their economical status, they could also help Iraq to Shia Muslims in Iraq to fight against ISIS, and it would be in America's good image because it's fighting a terrorist organization directly or indirectly. Also, I'm going to Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia wouldn't, in a way, be sad because America didn't put that as the main partner in Middle East, because they had a partnership with America for a couple of years, and now they gained somehow a professionality that America gave to them, and now they are in a better place than they were before starting relations with America. In which way they wouldn't be somehow sad because of this relationship. Thanks.
All right, thank you for those remarks. Now down by the deputy of the opposition to close out the top half of this debate. Here. I also remind everyone to please stay off of their phones. If you are on your phones in the round, we will be assuming that you are looking things up in the round, so please don't give us any reason to have to disqualify you in the round. Okay? Besides like timing, which is different when you're up there, right? Stop cheating.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My partner already discussed some arguments also Saudi Arabia from this alliance. But before I'm going to proceed to my main argumentation, I'm going to point some things that the government already mentioned. They try to tell us that it is a better ally, Iran, than Saudi Arabia. Because they have some massive oil reserves, but they fail to say to us if these oil reserves are bigger than Saudi Arabia, that actually controls the 40% of world's oil. Also, they told us that it is a better ally because it's strategically better in a better position than Saudi Arabia. But actually, Iran has suffered quite a few embargoes, so I don't understand why Saudi Arabia is not as good as Iran at that point of view. And also, you said something about Russia, that it would be better to form an alliance with Iran for America in order to fight back the Russians. But actually, I think that Russians and Americans are not that much of enemies. For example, they're fighting together the global terrorism, a fight against ISIS. So basically, we have some form of cohesion and alliance between these two countries. Before that, I'm going to proceed to my main argumentation. Saudi Arabia, apart from the US, Saudi Arabia also benefits from this alliance. And Saudi Arabia, being in alliance with an Eastern modern country, as it's US and it supports freedom, is actually forming a subtle pressure in order to enhance changes and social reforms regarding, for example, the recognition in their constitutions of women's position and the rights of women in that countries. For example, nowadays the 18% of parliament is actually parliament members, and it is actually occupied by women. And this is something that we believe that this long-term alliance with US has also helped too. So it is a moral obligation and a benefit for both sides, especially in Saudi Arabia, to be a more liberal country than it used to be. Maybe this, because as my partner already stated, because it is a Mecca for all the Muslim states, and it has this prominent position, maybe it could be shiny beacon and a very good example said about the recognition of women's rights for other Muslim religions all around the world, that they are actually seeing Saudi Arabia as the Mecca of their religions. And I'm going to proceed in the next argument. We want stability and predictability. We're talking about strategic alliance. We want a partner and an alliance which is rational, which is predictable, and which is stable. In the long run, it's better to have a partner we can trust. And this is Saudi Arabia, because all these years we have been forming this alliance, and yes, there may be some rough edges, but we were able all these years to smoothen things up and maybe reform a different kind of alliance, and a very rational and a good partner to trust. Yeah.
You said that Saudi Arabia has been confident. How can we assure that Saudi Arabia is more confident than Iran?
Okay. Because as I already mentioned, Saudi Arabia has been our long-term partner, so we can smoothen our edges all these years, and this is a partner who has proved that it is better to be an ally with us, and for economic reasons, and it's something that we've already tried. We have seen in the past that Saudi Arabia is a more credible partner than Iran. And let's face it, we don't want a partner which actually plays with the nuclear program, and this is what already my partner stated. And yes, you may say that there are people, religion Muslims, people in Saudi Arabia, but they don't play with the nuclear program as Iran. Iran actually may be a partner that is quite irrational because it is alienated from the rest of the Muslim world. And we want to form a good alliance. We want to form a good alliance with the rest of the world, the Muslim world, facing all this problem with the ISIS. So we really think that Iran is actually a partner that we can trust, we cannot trust, and it could be quite difficult for us to form an alliance. We had to, if we form an alliance with them, we had maybe to back off in our nuclear policy that do not accept nuclear weapons whatsoever. For all these reasons that were already mentioned by my partner, speaking about Saudi Arabia being the Mecca of the Muslim world and being in a good relationship with this prominent partner helped us form a better relationship with the rest of the Muslims. For economic reasons, because Saudi Arabia is able to sustain some maybe upcoming oil crisis. For reasons I mentioned, that there are benefits both in both sides, Saudi Arabia and America also, and because we want a stable and predictable partner, and this is not Iran, because at the end of the day, the question that I'm posing, and we are posing as an opening position, is do we want a rational ally, or do we don't want a rational ally? Thank you very much.
All right, the speaker for those remarks. Now invite the member of government of the back half of this debate. Here.
Madam Speaker, almost the entire case on the other side of the House today is contingent upon the false premise that Iran doesn't want the West to be its ally. Well, I have a very important thing to say at the beginning of my speech, which is, if this debate had taken place, say, in 2012, I would have most probably agreed with the opposition. However, this debate is taking place in 2015, and Iran is definitely not the same country as it was a few years ago. So, what I will try to say to prove in my speech is that Iran does want us. They do want an alliance with the West. Also, I will try to prove that Iran has earned our trust, so they have basically deserved the right for us to allow them to be our friends. And finally, Iran needs us in these very particular difficult times that the world is experiencing, has been experiencing recently. So I would like to start by with my first point. So why does Iran actually want us to be friends? Well, Iran has abolished its nuclear program. They're no longer trying to become a nuclear power. There is, as you should be aware, no, thank you. As you should be aware, there is an agreement which has basically disabled Iran from developing a nuclear program in the foreseeable future. Also, as a consequence of this agreement, which was recently signed between Iran and the West, there are no longer any sanctions, any Western sanctions on Iran. Now, of course, there were sanctions in the past, as the opposition mentioned, but I don't think that the Iranian people actually blame the West for these sanctions. They blame their own government. They blame Ahmadinejad, their prime minister, whom they had until a few years ago. So, by voting for Rouhani, their current prime minister, who was elected in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, they showed that they no longer want this sort of radically Islamist government, which was the case with Ahmadinejad. They want change. And actually, most of the ministers, most of the ministers in Rouhani's government have been educated in the West. They're exporting this sort of totally new, totally much more open mindset to Iran. So, therefore, we can not view them in the same way as we viewed them a few years ago. Yes, Chris. Closing.
You're aware that Iran is a theocracy that is run by a Ayatollah that selects the candidate that are potential prime ministers, such as Rouhani, and in its constitution is Islamic Republic.
Iran is indeed a theocracy to an extent, and Khamenei does indeed have a tremendous say in Iranian politics. But the fact that they have elected a modern, basically Western-based, I would say, prime minister indicates that there is a desire for change in Iran. And also, even Khamenei himself, the supreme leader, has changed his views, has become much more moderate recently. He has actually supported the agreement with the West in the end. So things are definitely changing in Iran from that point of view. Moving on to the religious argument made by the opposition. Yes, of course, Saudi Arabia is very important in terms of religion. Historically, that's where Islam was born in a way, and that's something that we cannot just dismiss. Also, as I mentioned in my POI, at the same time, unfortunately, Saudi Arabia has been the birthplace of a very dangerous extremist branch of Islam called Wahhabism. And if we tolerate Wahhabism, then we're literally no better than ISIS. Wahhabism tolerates rape, tolerates violence towards women, and actually Saudi Arabia still has the so-called Sharia law, a version of which is also used by ISIS. So in Saudi Arabia, no thank you. In Saudi Arabia, yes, the opposition is right. They recently, a few months ago, allowed women to vote, but only now in 2015. But they still have this terrible Sharia law, which even allows the stoning of people, the stoning of women and people in some areas of the country. Yes, please.
Iran has also Sharia law.
I didn't hear that.
Iran has also Sharia law.
Well, what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to do in my speech is not to paint this perfect picture of Iran as a heaven on earth, as a country with which we should be happy to be allies with. Unfortunately, we're choosing between two evils in this case. But Iran is much better. You need to focus on the comparative here. Iran is much less of an evil than Saudi Arabia. Why do I think that? I have other reasons to think that, not just the ones that I've mentioned so far. I think that because Saudi Arabia has recently been a major source of IS recruits. So of course we cannot blame the Saudi Arabian government entirely for the rise of ISIS supporters in Saudi Arabia, but we can definitely blame the government for failing to prevent this kind of outbreak of ISIS supporters in their country. No thank you. With their tolerance of Wahhabism, with the fact that leading officials in Saudi Arabia actually openly express Wahhabist attitudes, they have definitely contributed to the rise of this extremist version of Islam in Saudi Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, by being allies with Saudi Arabia, we are just reinforcing this idea of Western hypocrisy, which is already present in many cultures in the world, which are not so fond of the US and of the West in general. This is the kind of idea that we should fight, and we cannot fight this idea if we keep supporting a country like Saudi Arabia. The perception that we're only with them for the money will persist, and this is the kind of perception that we can't have anymore. I would like to elaborate. So I think I have by now proven why Saudi Arabia does no longer deserve to be our ally. Speaking of Saudi Arabia, I would just like to finish off by saying that, by reminding everyone that the opposition said that 40% of oil production is in Saudi Arabia. Yes, absolutely, we acknowledge this. But of course, if we decide to make Iran our major strategic partner in the Middle East, that doesn't mean that we're discontinuing any kind of trade with Saudi Arabia. Just because we don't trust them anymore as our main strategic partner, doesn't mean that we're not trading anything with them. Because even they themselves would not want to abolish all trade with us, because they're dependent on trading with us. So, my final point on why Iran is a better ally than Saudi Arabia, well, they have shown tremendous support in the fight of ISIS. They have even proposed a solution for the elimination of Assad in Syria and finding alternative sources of power and democratizing Syria. They have also helped a lot with the refugees. They have taken a lot of refugees, even though they do not really have the infrastructural means to accommodate them. So for all these reasons, ladies and gentlemen, Iran is a much better friend for the West than Saudi Arabia. I'm proud to propose.
Here's the remarks on by the member of opposition to over the back half of the outside. Here.
first in my speech, I'll quickly refer to what was talking to the entire side of government and how they try to convince us that it's better for the United States to shoot this kind of sectarian alliances and to go in the backyard of Iran. They try to bring some economic reasons such as the oil and so on, and supporting them with a huge contradictory, and that is, as they said, the oil prices are falling, and they are falling rapidly by the global events such as the lack of demand and so on and so forth, huge increase in U.S. supply. So the Iran oil is so marginal it doesn't even fit the equation, even if we somehow agree that this is so hugely important and this is the only way that we are determining our partnership. So even in the times when we are not in the United States is not in a good relationship with Iran, they always fell and so on. Further on, the debate was, and we have the United States has a hugely important alliance in this kind of sphere because the oil is tied with the dollar just because of the Saudi-U.S. agreement that was established with Saudi Arabia as a key OPEC player and so on and so forth. As they say and confirm, Saudi Arabia is key a strategic player in the Iraq world, even as the government confirmed us, and that's why we believe that it's hugely important for the reasons that economically and strategically we should stay with Saudi Arabia. Further on, I will go on the closing government and what he tried to picture us as the change in Iran and that Iran now wants the West. After the signing the agreement of the political agreement, Ayatollah Khomeini went out and said, we cannot, America is a Satan, and the standard starting of the praises, which is debt to America, debt to Israel, and so on, which are officially in the Iranian policy, which are officially a policy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, such as the policy of annihilation of Israel, a key partner of the United States. Further on, they told us that just because Saudi Arabia has a dangerous ideology within itself, that means that their policy is inherently bad, that the Wahhabism or any kind of ideology or movement has nothing to do with the policy of the government. There's a lot of Wahhabist churches, Wahhabist mosques in the Brussels, and there's all around the world. So the thought and the ideology cannot be stopped and cannot be and has nothing to do with the official government policy, which is Saudi Arabia to be an ally and support U.S. in the fight against terror. Further on, they told us that Saudi Arabia has a lot of ISIS recruits. By the same logic, we should stop the allies with a lot of Western European friends. There's a lot of recruits from ISIS from the United States by itself. So, on the same point, the ideology and the thoughts and how the individuals will act is not. It has nothing to do. It is not in line with the official government policy, which is to stay an ally and to contribute in the fight of terror after and playing the key role after the 9/11 in breaking down Al-Qaeda, stopping, arresting 50% of the Al-Qaeda and so on. And I will go to Arab Constructed and focus on why this will be inherently bad for the United States. They try to forget that Iran is officially state sponsor of terror. Not that some individuals are supporting terrorist idea. The fifth division of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is now Hezbollah. Qasem Soleimani, the leader of the Guard forces, is its official Revolutionary Guard general, is responsible for more deaths on the U.S. troops in Iraq than any kind of other group in Iraq. The attacks of Lebanon on the tried to assassination of George Bush Sr., and so on and so forth, the relentless strike on Hezbollah, the attack of Buenos Aires, are only confirming this line, this policy that the U.S., that Iran helps terror, that supports terrorist groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas, and is feeding this kind of tensions in the Middle East. Further on, we believe that switching this kind of alliance will be damaging to the very important issue in the Middle East, and that is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli partnership with the United States is essential because the United States is a guarantee to the stability in the Middle East and the guarantee of the safety of the state of Israel. Iran has publicly, Saudi Arabia has helped in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a negotiator, as a side, and has publicly rejected extremist groups such as Hamas. On the other side, Iran has tried to sneak in rockets that are launching to the state of Israel. And the third point, this kind of shift in the U.S. policy would show to the world that the U.S. word is noteworthy. The United States is an untrusted partner. The United States shifts its strategic partnership according to the daily politics or the daily price of the oil, and this is profoundly wrong. We believe that this kind of historic partnership with the Sunni world and Saudi Arabia itself must be maintained, and even if we agree that we should have a better relationship with Iran, that cannot be made in a fashion that the government tries to propose here, and that is shifting sectarian alliances that will be devastating for the tension in the Middle East. Therefore, we believe that this motion should be opposed.
All right, thank you for those remarks. I will now.
It sounds like a 2-minute break. I really have to go through that. It's like it's a couple last minutes.
Yes, okay.
Just 2 minutes. I'll run.
You need to
I'm sorry.
physically run as fast as you can. If we could just not prep. I know you can think and I can't control your mind, but like just don't talk to each other. Just for like fairness in the round. So again, what's going on up here, but wow, that was very quick. Okay, so we would now like to invite the government witness from higher big the government side. You're here. Oh, hold on. Mine is my chart. Not do it. No. It's okay. I got my chart. No. Yeah, yeah.
Actually,
Oh. I got it. It's no big deal. Okay.
So,
Hold on 1 second. All right. So whenever you're ready.
Madam Speaker, what our closing government, what our closing opposition is trying to promote with their case for the first time is trying to defocus us from our motion by stating that when we choose between between Iran and Saudi Arabia, we're actually choosing between Israel and Iran. Now this is not the case, and this is the first flashpoint I'm saying. This is not the case because what we are choosing right now is between between security or insecurity in the Middle East. This is for the first time after a long time not choosing between Israel and Palestine, but between choosing the security of Israeli and Palestine and the rise of ISIS, or actually fighting the ISIS, what we are actually promoting as a government, as the position of the government. So what the both governments were unanimous in this debate was the point that we do have economic ties with the Saudi Arabians, and we are not promoting stopping these economic ties. And why we are not going to stop them, even if we prioritize and put Iran in our focus right now in fighting, in securing peace in the Middle East. First of all, Saudi Arabia controls 40% of the world's oil, as the opening government already said. Yes, that's true, and since we are the first trading partner of Saudi Arabia, and since, as the opening government already stated, the oil price is dropping the whole time, Saudi Arabia cannot afford losing us, the US, as our main trading partner by cutting all the economic ties with us, because it will be a triple loss. First of all, the current one, the drop of the oil price, which they cannot control anyhow right now. Second of all, using its main import of oil, and third of all, losing its main export of weaponry, and Saudi Arabia is the main importer of weaponry, and we are the main exporter of weaponry. So the economic security will not be at stake anyhow. However, the main clash point was whether they want to keep blindly focusing on Saudi Arabia, or they will shift the policy in a more humanitarian perspective, as the whole government is proposing. As my partner already said, the stability in the Middle East should be the objective right now, and is the objective right now through our case, because what was here irrefuted is that Saudi Arabia is Sunnah, just like the religious, just like the main religious of ISIS, and is blindly focusing on Sharia law. And as the opening government opposition already stated, we have a rational partner, trading partner. How this is just a question I'm going to end my debate with. How is Saudi Arabia rational if they, as my partner already stated, have zero acceptance rate of refugees, zero forces sent to securing the Middle East crisis right now with Syria and with ISIS? And how is this rational if they're just providing more insecurity for their neighboring countries? Then, yes, your question, please.
If we drop our alliance with Saudi Arabia, what will actually stop them to forming an alliance with China, which will be catastrophic for us?
This is just a speculation, because we know that due to their tradition with us, we can speculate what will happen, but you cannot have a proof that they will just drop their economic partnership with us just because we are prioritizing fighting the ISIS, which, as my partner already said in his speech, Iran is the best partner in the Middle East, which will give us the opportunity to fight them at best, and not Saudi Arabia. So this will not be the case. However, just right back to ISIS, as my partner already mentioned, the religious argument, Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of both Muslim religion. However, both Wahhabism, which is actually the main, the biggest religious sector, but the biggest religious group, where ISIS recruits their fighters. Saudi Arabia is not a rational partner. Saudi Arabia is therefore actually the ISIS in the Middle East and therefore in the whole world. Just to the refugee crisis, which was irrefuted. Saudi Arabia has zero acceptance rate of refugees. However, Iran continues to accept thousands and thousands of refugees within their country. And then afterwards, Iran actually proposed a solution for the crisis in Syria. It was not adopted. However, we see how they are giving effort to solve this crisis. However, this is not the case in Saudi Arabia. And just to tell you how not important or how actually tiny the losses are by how actually the importance of what they're saying that Europe that there are also ISIS fighters from Europe. There were thousands of fighters recruited from Saudi Arabia due to their Wahhabistic rhetoric in ISIS. However, there were just 800 from Germany, and Germany is the biggest country of ISIS recruited forces from Europe, from whole Europe. However, Saudi Arabia, as previously mentioned, has zero acceptance rate, and Germany has 1 million refugees accepted just in this year from the same crisis. So yes, the metrics is not quite there. Therefore, proposition.
Okay, let's move to those remarks. I'll now invite the opposition whip and the entire debate here.
Hello, good evening. Without further ado, as the opposition whip, will close the government for the opposition and close the argument and close the whole debate. So first, four, and I'll try to keep it short. And I'm sorry for any sort of positive content that may appear. I'll try to keep it as little as possible. But some of the things will only emphasize in the last speech, so I have to rebuttal it at least a little bit. Firstly, we have heard that security is not at stake, and because Saudi Arabia has no alternative but to keep on cooperating with the US because of the situation of the dropping oil prices. We think this is not true, because if the US start cooperating, if we begin to speculate, as the government has began to speculate, we should speculate even further. If we would start cooperating more with Iran, the oil price of Saudi Arabian oil would drop even lower, whereas Saudi Arabia would be inclined to search for another ally, which could potentially be Russia or China or some other geopolitical, so to say, enemy of the US. So if we will speculate, Iran is far more dangerous. Secondly, Saudi Arabia actually is currently militarily supporting the fight against ISIS. It has a couple of days ago started the Arabian League against ISIS with other Sunni nations, of which Iran is not a part of. So Saudi Arabia actually is starting to militarily get involved. Moreover, about the refugees, I think that refugees cannot be a metric by which we base who our allies are, because by that metric, Latvia is not our ally, or Lithuania, or any other country that does not accept refugees, and we cannot alienate any country that does not accept refugees in the world. Saudi Arabia does give a substantial amount of money towards helping refugees, and it's a matter of the state policy. But moving on, what we've seen in this debate on the first part of the table was a clash of whether of the idea whether a comparative, basically which of the two potential allies is better. From the government, we have heard that this is Iran. That Iran is currently the better ally. But we have heard no actual substantial proof. We have heard general ideas and general ideas. And from the side of the opposition, we have heard that actually a comparative advantage is on the side of the Saudi Arabia, and actually Saudi Arabia currently is the better ally and will always be. What we in the second part of the table, I will try to focus on more, is yes, comparatively Saudi Arabia currently is the more stable and better partner and the proven partner, whereas Iran is a proven enemy. but also why we could never cooperate with Iran. We think that this was like in the first part of the debate, and we would like to focus on this, we would try to focus on this more. As my previous speaker from the opposition has said, Iran is simply not a viable option for an ally. It's a constitutional theocratic state which would never cooperate with the US. Iran actually got its independence from a dictator installed by the US and historically hates the US ever since. It historically burned US flags, occupied US embassies, and done different and sponsored terrorism against the US for years. So we do not believe that a sudden switch of their politics, which has only been brought on by the sanctions, because otherwise Iran would never be willing to cooperate with the US. Yes.
Does the fact that Saudi Arabia has joined the fight against ISIS on a small scale mean that we should keep allowing them to fuel the rise of ISIS and the development of ISIS in the region through their Wahhabist rhetoric?
Okay, I think we have proven that Wahhabism does not equal does not equal radical Islam in a bad way. It does not equal terrorism. It does not equal fueling ISIS. We have heard that there are Wahhabist churches which have nothing to do with ISIS, and we believe that this connection is not real. There are certain groups that are non-governmental in every country that work against the government, even in Western countries. And we cannot judge a country based on groups working within it. What we do know is that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism, and that actually the state is working against the US. And if now they are choosing to get a more pro-US approach, we should still be cautious, and if we did lift the bans, we should stick to that. We should give them the opportunity to prove themselves, and then maybe someday try to cooperate more. For now, we have Saudi Arabia, which is a much better ally, which has proven to be a good ally. But why Iran can never be an ally? Apart from being an official sponsor of terrorism, also, as my previous speaker has said, they are basically one of the reasons why the Palestinian conflict is currently under control. It's a conflict that will keep going on for a while, and we need countries like Saudi Arabia who have extremely high bargaining power in that region to be there to mediate between Israel and Palestine. Iran would never do this, and Iran would never even come to a table to discuss this topic. Moreover, a switch would undermine U.S. stability. So that would be a major switch in the U.S. Foreign policy, which would undermine U.S. stability. All of our allies could potentially feel harmed and potentially feel danger. What will happen next? We'll start supporting Kurds openly against Turkey and lose Turkey as a strategic ally. This opens the doors to suspicions that the U.S. has a flip-flopping foreign policy, which is quite dangerous to the U.S. What we think that we have proven towards this debate through a couple of examples that we have heard is that basically, even if the first thing we have heard that comparatively, of course, Saudi Arabia is the better ally because it's proven, it's a lot more influential, it's a lot more respected in the Arab world, it has more oil, and will continue to produce more oil. But what we have heard is, but now what we put in the second part of the table is that actually, even if we did choose to cooperate with Iran or for some other reason, we would still not be able to cooperate with Iran because of what Iran is as a country. Like right now, still unstable, still dangerous, still has a lot of problems. And whereas Saudi Arabia is our proven ally, and we know that they can satisfy us. What we have shown is that it would be quite dangerous to move away from Saudi Arabia as an ally because they could of course they would start losing money and stuff. They could turn to somebody else. We would be in danger as we have heard from alienating other Sunni Muslim regimes. We think here that it's not just a choice of which one is the better ally. We think that it's inherently flawed because one of them cannot be our ally in any capacity at this point. It is not something that we have done to alienate. Historically, it may be something the US has done to alienate them, but in their recent and modern history, the only side which was actively worked against the other side was Iran, constantly actively provoking the US, and we as the US cannot support this. We can give them the opportunity to try and change their policy towards the US, but right now they can't be our main ally in the Middle East when we take into account what has happened in the last 20 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those remarks.